The DOS and Don'ts Retro newsletter proudly presents this story from issue number 1, published November 1st of 2023.
Commodore 64 How-To, Loading Software, written by Joe Collett. If you are into retro computers, one machine you are probably aware of is the Commodore 64. This was a great machine for games and basic programming back in its day. But a lot of people who have picked up a C64 have no doubt wondered, how the heck do I load software on this thing? The first thing to be aware of is that some older retro machines don't have an operating system such as Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. When they are turned on, they instead go straight to a basic interpreter. Straight away, as soon as the computer is turned on, a user could start coding in BASIC and/or run their basic programs. But what if you wanted to play some games instead? Of course, the BASIC interpreter also has some built-in commands to load and save software. If you want to load software from a cartridge, I have some great news for you. Putting the cartridge in the cartridge slot and turning on the computer will load the cartridge automatically. A cool thing about loading from cartridge is that it can improve the capabilities of your system by adding more RAM, new commands, and even improving load speeds. The C64 loading speeds were well known to be on that slow side. They could be greatly improved with a fast load cartridge. Audio cassette tapes were very popular around the world as a cost-effective way to save and load programs. Anyone could buy cassette tapes. They were inexpensive and widely available. While floppy disks took over in the United States rather quickly, most of the rest of the world were instead using cassette tapes. Many European-released games, for instance, were released only on cassette because floppy disks were not widely used in that market. Since cassettes are both a readable and writable medium, they allowed you to save high scores and save states, something that couldn't be done with a cartridge. Some tapes held multiple programs and you would have to use the counter on the cassette deck, if so equipped, to queue up the tape before you could load your program. Usually, the J card, the folded card stock that displayed information about the cassette, would tell you where each program started. For instance, if the J card indicated that your program started at 334, you would need to make sure the cassette was fully rewound, reset the counter to 0, and then fast forward to 334. You would then type load and press enter. If the tape deck wasn't equipped with a remote function, you would then also need to press play on the tape deck. The computer would then look for any program available, let you know what it found, and ask you if you would like to load it. Pressing the Commodore key will begin the loading process. The final option is to load software from a floppy disk drive. This has all of the advantages of the cassette tape, but with faster load speeds and none of the queuing that was needed to load from a cassette. To load from a disk, place it in the disk drive, close the shutter, and type in load $*8,1. This will load the first file on device number 8, the default device number for a floppy drive. Similarly, using the command load $$8 followed by a list command will obtain the directory of the floppy disk and then list its contents on screen. You can then load any of the programs on the disk with load the program name $8,1.
About Joe Collett. Joe has been working with retro machines since he was a kid and the computers were new. He never lost his love of those early machines. His day job as a desktop support tech allows him to work with the newest machines, but he will always have a soft spot for the old machines and software that made the modern world possible. Joe's website can be found at comfortablynumb.webpages.com.
The DOS and Don'ts team consists of Grizzly Adam, editor, publisher, writer; Jon Mullin, assistant editor, writer; Plendlful, consulting editor; Joe Collett, associate publisher, writer; BlueMSX, writer. Visit our website at dosandon'ts.mywebcommunity.org. And don't forget to write to us, submit your retro memory, or, most importantly, sign up for the newsletter. The Das and Don'ts Retro newsletter is published the first of each month. Subscribers get early access.